Growing up in a very small town in Iowa wasn't easy, and it wasn't because of the rural area or limited resources. It was because of the palpable pressure that I felt to live somewhere more important. It was like this message that I was getting from the world that you need to live somewhere different in order for your life to look different and to mean more. And it took me 10 years and just as many moves to realize that meaning isn't tied to a location, it's tied to you and the meaning that you choose to make wherever it is right for your life to unfold. When I was 18, I left my hometown in Iowa outside of a town of 1,000 people and moved to Colorado Springs, which had 600,000 people. And it was quite the shock, as you can imagine. But it also felt like I was doing something right. I was listening to the messaging that I was getting from the outside world that to be something and for my life to mean more, I needed to be somewhere different, somewhere bigger, somewhere more meaningful. But I also was clinging to it as a source of identity and validation. I would think to myself subconsciously, I got out of Iowa, I'm doing something right. I don't have to examine my life any further or ask myself any harder questions. And in that way, I was clinging to it, like I said, for a sense of validation and identity. When I lived in Colorado, everybody that I meet that I told I was from Iowa, half of them thought I said Idaho. They didn't really have a picture of Iowa in their minds. And in Montana, where I lived later, many people hadn't even met anybody from Iowa before. And so I got met with the question a lot of what's in Iowa? And it was easy for me for many years to kind of laugh along with them and say nothing. Nothing's in Iowa. But the past couple years, especially, the answer to that question changed. The answer to that question became what's in Iowa? Iowa is home. Home is in Iowa. I had no reason to hold back that sense of meaning and place and identity because I didn't think it was good enough in the eyes of other people, because Iowa always meant something to me. I just had to push past what I thought other people thought about it in order to allow it to have the meaning that it could have for me and choose it to have meaning. The older I got, the more that I realized authenticity isn't about chasing a city that everybody else thinks is cool. It's about choosing somewhere to live that feels like you. For me, authenticity looked like something I thought I would never do. I lived in Bozeman, Montana for a few years, and I decided to leave it and move straight into the 125-year-old house that my mom grew up in and my grandma lived in for 50 years. It doesn't have to look like this for everybody. Small towns and rural communities aren't safe or right for everybody. But my point is this. Authenticity means choosing where you live because of what feels true to you, not because of what looks impressive from the outside. Using external validation as a way to justify your life choices is the fastest way to live your life for other people, and the opinions of others should never outweigh your own sense of meaning and direction in your own life. Using external validation to justify your life choices is one of the fastest ways to end up living your life for other people. Your own sense of meaning and direction should never be outweighed by the imagined opinions of strangers that you've never met and that you will never meet. What I gained by moving back to Iowa was connection with my family and peace, open space, affordable living, and a sense of belonging that I didn't have to earn. I stopped feeling like I needed to be impressive or have my life look a certain way, and I embraced just trying to be me and what felt right for me. The story of how I got here and how this choice of authenticity has unfolded for me has been an interesting one. In 2020, I moved into my grandma's house, into this house, out of necessity because I really had nowhere else to go at that time and I needed somewhere to live. And my grandma hasn't lived here for a while, so I moved into this house. It was never going to be a permanent option because I was planning to move to Montana. The whole time I was living here, I knew that I wanted to do that. And so this house and being here was always a means to an end for me. And so I did that. In 2021, I was able to move to Montana after living here for about a year. And I really enjoyed that. I think that I needed to go there. I enjoyed the mountains and skiing and being close to nature and just the lifestyle and being around even younger people that Bozeman had to offer me. But the truth became undeniable. Wherever you go, there you are. And you can't move away from the unhealed parts of you or the parts of you or the parts of your life that you haven't quite figured out yet. You can't find an identity in a place. You can only find yourself. And sometimes a beautiful place just distracts you from what's going on the inside. In Montana, I realized I was surrounded by people just like me, chasing an identity, chasing that aesthetic, and paying massive housing costs for a community that they didn't necessarily feel connected to. And I felt it. I didn't want to compete for space or for meaning anymore. So I did something that my younger self would have never believed. I moved back home. I moved back to the same house that I left in the fields. I moved back to this sense of peace. And it took me living places that looked amazing on paper and that did have their ups and downs, to understand the truth that I didn't want a life that looked impressive. I want a life that feels like me. And I find that life, the one that feels aligned, grounded, and authentic, right here in rural Iowa, in the same house that I chose to leave, with my family close, with lots of open space outside, with room for me to feel peace, and with room for me to figure out who it is that I want to be. For somebody who is ambitious and wants to live a big life, choosing authenticity can sometimes feel counterintuitive, because sometimes it's not about choosing the most glamorous place to live. Sometimes it's choosing somewhere that nobody else really understands, and it's because that meaning is created by you. It's not where you go that matters, it's who you are when you get there. Authenticity is choosing to live somewhere that supports your becoming, not somewhere that distracts you from your truth. Last winter, I was visiting Bozeman and I was backcountry skiing with a group of people. And somebody asked the icebreaker question of, if you had a door in front of you that could go anywhere in the world, where would that door open to? And the only answer that I could think of was my grandma's house. It was home. So I want to leave you with that same question. Where would your door open to? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so you can see the next videos in this authenticity series. And I can't wait to see you there. Bye.